Okay. All right. Good. Stuff.
Okay, call this regularly scheduled USD 379 Board of Education meeting to order. First thing we need to do is to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor? Agenda approved, 7-0. Pledge of allegiance.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please attend us tonight. All those watching on the video, it reminds you all the meetings are saved on there, and you got a chance to go back and watch them again. But thanks for coming tonight and being part of the meeting. Just that since it's open forum, we have one. The board appreciates patrons taking time to talk to us about our policies and procedures. We set aside this time every meeting to hear from the public. Your comments should be directed towards board policy or the procedures our administrators established to carry out those policies. This is not appropriate time or place for patrons to make comments of a personal nature about any district employee or student. Persons making comments which violate the privacy rights of district employees and students will be asked to stop speaking or cease their remarks. If a patron or parent has a concern with one or more employees, the board will refer that person to the appropriate administrator, and the board will follow up in a future meeting. Person speaking will be allowed 3 minutes each to express their opinions. Thank you for taking your time to discuss district business with the board. With that, yes.
Next month, I would like to have a executive session with just the school board. There was an incident at your middle school involving a highly inappropriate song that was played, and it took 48 hours to get a phone call back discussing what was going on. I was informed at that time that it was no big deal, that the student had been assessed, the situation had been assessed, and that they didn't see any problems with it. I have a problem with the administration that is running this school district that is trying to sweep things under the rug. This is not the first incident that has happened.
I'm sorry, that's calling out a specific employee.
On us being careful on the personnel stuff like that, Jessica, is that I'll let you finish, but then like I said, send me an email. It's on there. Send me an email and I will get together with you and we'll discuss.
This isn't the first incident that's happened at this school involving my student who attends this school. This is the third incident. This is the third time that I've been pushed aside and tried to be swept under the rug.
Like I said, get on there, email me, and we'll set up a meeting here real soon. We'll get together and talk. Okay, thank you. All right. With that, is that having presentations, consent agenda. Questions on the consent agenda?
We had a late addition to the donations, and I put a little comment in there. Your chance to look at that. It came in today to us, so timing wise. We really don't know what to expect, but just randomly chosen with a local business and opportunity for the staff. So
That was at 2:35 this afternoon. For those of you. I got it. And, so. Questions, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented. Second, any other discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Approve resolution, that's what it's all about. Reports. So the first one, board reports. Anyway,
Yeah, so in the consent agenda, we have the principal reports from the buildings that have the state assessment results. And I just want to commend all the teachers, staff and parents who did their part to help the students achieve. We've got great improvements and from one grade to a next to see how much growth they've made. And then in how many areas we are performing better than the state average. And that's really what's the whole point of what we do is to educate our children. And it's great that that is happening in our district. And I think everybody that contributes to that.
I do want to mention, and I agree, was that, but it's hard to use this as a true reference because they did change how they applied it this year. And so next year will give us our true, as far as improvement, they lowered it, I mean, quite frankly, to put more people in the tiers. I mean, Dr. Watson. So it was assessed differently than what it was in the past, correct?
But yeah, they changed the state assessment every 10 years.
Right.
And so it'd been 10 years since they changed the assessment.
Right.
They shortened it and they did align the cut scores with ACT scores. As you remember, to get a 4 on the old one, you had to score at 27 or better on the ACT. And so they tried to align cut scores with what colleges and universities are saying are college ready. So like, for example, what was the ACT score that we all were required to get when we get up to school? Remember if you were K-State or KU back in the day?
18.
17 or 18. And so that's been a lot of studies and research done. If you can score in that general area, then you're going to be college ready. And prior to that, a student scoring in the old scores in a high level 1, they were scoring consistently in a 16 to an 18 ACT. So they realigned cut scores to show that, to align to what college readiness, a more accurate reflection of what college readiness is. But the reality is every 10 years they redo those. And so they did redo the entire state assessments aligned to the standards. So this is year 0. And then, so the next couple of years, they'll verify the data, adjust cut scores. But yeah, I think that's accurate to say this would be year 0 on the new data.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I'm saying, that you can't really compare it to last year.
But you can compare us to the rest of the state, and we were
Results.
achieving higher than the rest of the state, so.
They're good results, and so all that, but there was a change in the way it was done. Yep, very good.
I'd like to give a shout out also to our staff and students, the district staff and students, basically, for the attendance that we've been having at our schools. It went remarkable on the recorder, on the principal reports. So thank you very much. And I also had the honor and the privilege of attending a high school construction trades class of instructor Brandon Fitzmyers. And then also a 3rd grade teacher, Miss Euler's, Eller's class there at Wakefield here just last week. And anyway, it was, the children were discussing 3rd grade math, and it was a very wonderful learning experience. I thought the kids were getting wonderful instruction out of it. And in fact, I had a great time just sitting there observing what they were doing. So we have some really great staff and students in this district, and it's great to see that continue. Thank you.
Thanks. I really like what we put out on the Facebook, what the kids are doing in classes, and I think that's really, in the classrooms, and well, it's putting on Facebook or something.
I appreciate the middle school listing all the different subjects and what they're teaching in those subjects and what's coming up. Also, last week I had the privilege, well, I also did this last year, but last week I had the privilege of going with Jacqueline to Lincoln and sitting with her during a letters lesson. And she was doing vocabulary and quite a bit of higher level thinking going on during that time. So I'm hoping to get to go tomorrow also. So good things to report about that.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, we'll move to the next report, which is Mike, Bowie with the Director of Transportation.
You're up. Let me come up there, how you want?
Wherever you're comfy.
Wander. Mine, huh? Well, I'm sorry about the format, or hopefully you like the format of the reports. It's kind of the running, I guess, my tenure here, so kind of easier to reflect on all the changes through the years on that, so. Really, this year is kind of a fine tuning thing. Feel that we've settled in finally. We had some changes this year. Nothing, just a lot of little ones, to be honest with you. In routes, we're doing good on drivers, so we had the Milton Vale pickup, so that changed a lot of things. We're hauling a lot of kids in that bus route now, so. But I feel the changes have all been good. I haven't had negative reaction to anything that we changed this year. We changed some stuff back, that were complaints from last year just to try to, and it worked out, so. Staffing wise, we're doing pretty good. We've got our big, epoxy test next week, so if you know anybody that needs a CDL, there's still time to sign up. We got 29 people in there, and it's open to everybody, so our staff included, we host it, the state puts it on, and it's a great program, so I wanted to do it every other year, but the state called me and said, hey, can we do it? It worked great last year. Okay, we can do it, so. And it allows our drivers to get endorsements that they may not be able to get easily, so if we have somebody that wants to get an air brake endorsement, they can easily do it, so. And like I said, it's great for the community. High school, I got with the counselors up there and made sure that they were aware that their students can take it. We're offering it's 2 days this year. The first day is the federal training, and the high school is sending their kids to the community college to get the same training. Well, for them, it's a 3-week online class that they have to take. With us, it's a 1-day training put on by the state, so, and it's a savings because they have to pay for that class. Ours is $25. So, and that gets you lunch and a nice facility, so. Excited about that. We had, like I said, 28 people signed up for it already, so we're doing good on that. Got the new shop equipment in, so I think we're compliant with everything. So new jack system, Wiley is very appreciative. He said, thank you. So it's been nice, so much safer, and like I said, lot more convenient for him too, so. Some of the biggest changes were in-house for my staff, and for the entire district, to be honest with you. I wanted to include an example of the QR system that we're using for vehicles, but I couldn't figure out an easy way for you to kind of see it. So there is the instruction guide on there. But now we're tracking miles. Every trip is tracked by everybody that uses a vehicle, our route drivers included. So they scan the QR code, they put in the miles, the date, who's driving, what they're driving for. They do a pre-trip, a safety pre-trip, and this includes if you're driving white vehicles. Before it was just that I checked it, it's okay. Now it's an itemized checklist that they have to go through because they need to do it too, not legally, but morally. So everybody has to do that as well. It's going to help with our state reporting because we're going to be able to pull out. I mean, we can pull out high school tennis, how many miles did they drive last year? Who drove it? I mean, all the data is there. We're still learning how to get it back, but all the data is there. So, but that is cleaned up, and it also helps us with our maintenance because we can track miles, services, all that stuff, and then all the repair tickets are included for vehicles. So, very pleased with the system. But like I said, with any new thing, we're still learning how to take advantage of all the parts of it. But the parts that we are using, we're using the heck out of. So it's been great. And the acceptance of that, I mean, it's an extra step for drivers to do in a way. Technology is a challenge with our group down there. So, but they've done great. I mean, it's a great group of people. So they're willing to do it. They see the benefit of it. So, let's see here. We got 2 more buses on disposal list. So we're down 4 buses. Which is great, where the fleet needs updated and we need to do it in a smart manner. And this is kind of, we've been taking baby steps. This is probably the last big cut of vehicles that we're gonna have. Our white fleet is appropriate. We've got vehicles where we need them. And we have good vehicles We'll just be cycling out for age at that point, you know, at this point, same with buses. So, and we're gonna sit down and reassess our bus fleet and see what, we need to do there. You'll notice in here, it was very vague because the facts are very vague. We may have a cost on our diesel buses depending on EPA regulations coming up. And it's gonna be a benefit to us to do it. My understanding is the EPA may relent a little bit on the DEF requirement, so that our buses will still have DEF, but we can change it so it is not a. Right now, if your DEF system goes bad, your bus shuts down, it deregulates, you can't drive it. The EPA is saying that we don't maybe need to do that anymore, so we will have to send it in for a software change on the buses. And it'll allow us to continue to use the bus. It'll be a big benefit to us because that's always a fear on those buses when you send them out. It doesn't affect how it drives or anything until the computer says you're bad and then you're stranded. So that may be a small cost coming up, but well worth it because you won't have stranded buses. Couple other little things that we have, we're stocking some inventory now. We're doing state contract on filters and bulk stuff. So we're getting a huge discount. So with this software, I can actually track parts and have an inventory. So we're ordering basically a year's worth of filters at one shot and then inventorying them as we go. So huge savings there. And we're putting it out for, you know, like I said, state contract prices. So it's a lot less than what we were paying before. And they don't like to do it unless you do it in bulk. So, which is understandable. That's kind of the highlights, the winter routes. I know there was some talk about that. Again, it's not set in stone. I will take your feedback happily. I think it's just a safer way to do the routes, and I think it'll allow us to open school when maybe there's a big question mark and make us more comfortable making that decision if we know that we're putting them on roads that are cleared. It's not plan A. It's never going to be plan A. Some districts have done this and abused it. That is not our goal. They'll apply it when it's muddy out or whatever rains or stuff. That is not our goal. It's 100%. If it's icy, if it's a bad day, it's a question mark. If we've got drifted roads, we get 90% of the kids, but the 10%, I know a concern of sports and all that, and we can address that, but I did address that a little bit in my report for you too. So, and more than happy to answer questions about it.
Yeah, Mike, on the building itself that your office is located at, are you having some type of like water?
We are. That building is older and I think it's part of the bond plan. I haven't dug into it greatly, but we do need to probably at minimal cost, try to mitigate what we have. Our air conditioning, we have wall air conditioners. Only one of them works and it leaks when it rains. So we do have some mitigation we need to take care of in the office. I do have access to a grant from 2 years ago or a donation that I'd like to probably apply just to cleaning up that wall and sealing it and getting it a little bit better. But I mean, as far as the building itself, it's in good shape. It hosts us well. You know, it's a good size. It's appropriate. We just have some stuff that we need to kind of clean up and make sure that people aren't walking into a moldy office. Okay. So we've got, you know, it's a work environment. I mean, we all understand that we don't have central heat, central air. And we kind of like it that way. So we're pretty understanding, but we get to the point where you have health concerns that need to be addressed on it. So again, it's something that we can, the bond would be great to get, you know, good offices and everything, but it's just something that we need to address with our maintenance to get it cleaned up and make it through.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, the superintendent's report. Rick?
Yeah, I will. We have a couple of guests in the audience from BHS, and they asked if they could just give a kind of a summative report on the summer projects that we hired them to do. I have some capital projects listed on my report. I'll do this every month on what's kind of going on, what's upcoming. And then obviously we will continue just with the capital outlay plan. Like if it's a project that we do anticipate of exceeding 20,000, we will notify every month and keep updated here. When an RFP is getting ready to go out, and as it is out for advertised, they're always on our website, but maybe another touch point here every month will alert anybody who's listening or in our community that might be interested in helping us with that. have the ability to participate if they want to. And so I don't know, Michael or Levi, who's gonna talk, but if you want to just give a kind of summative.
Yeah.
On what's going on with the summit.
Thank you, I appreciate it. My name is Michael Vano. I am a project manager with BHS Construction. I was involved in some of the projects in combination with our superintendent, Brett Oldie, some of our other team members, and then a handful of subcontractors. We did the seclusion room in the Wakefield School, as well as theater improvements at Clay Center Community High School this summer. Our contractual work is completed. That being said, we've been asked to do some additional tasks in the auditorium to get it to a place where everybody is satisfied with it. Some of those additional tasks include, there's an outlet bank behind the stage that is not currently controlled from the control booth. We have found a way that we can integrate that into the control booth. So we're gonna take care of that. The main curtain, a function of installing brand new theater curtains, is they settle, they sag a little bit as that fabric settles into the position that it is. So it's settled a little bit. So we're gonna come and we're gonna adjust that so that everything operates the way it should. And then additionally, there's a few curtain legs that were not originally replaced. So we're gonna get those replaced as well. That's something that we're gonna donate to the school district, so no cost to you. That work is scheduled to be completed next Thursday. I have communicated that to Mr. Young at the school, as well as a handful of the teachers who use that space. And all in all, we just wanted to make sure that we get that auditorium to a place where everybody's satisfied with both the function and the appearance of it. Really kind of the biggest thing. Additionally, I have reached out to Mr. Young as well as Mr. Nelson and set a calendar date for 11 months from the end of July for when we are gonna come back and just assess everything. We have a warranty period of a year for standard. We want to touch base with the district 11 months after and just double check, make sure that everything is performing the way it should be, looks the way it should be. That is not to mean that you can only contact us in 11 months. We are available to you every day up till then and after then. But I just wanted to make sure that we have something on the schedule to touch back when we're creeping up on that year. Make sure that everything is still performing the way it should. It's largely what I had to say. I don't know if you guys have any questions about anything.
I have a question. You say something about donating the curtains, being a part of.
So part of our contracted work was to replace the main curtain and some of the curtains, but not all of the curtains. And how that came to be, I'm not entirely certain, but during the course of construction, Harvest AV, our subcontractor who's doing the theater, they donated at their cost 4 curtain legs. And then we are gonna donate the remaining 2 curtain legs. That way that entire auditorium curtain is new and looks complete. Like I said, I don't know how we got to that scope in the contract documents, but regardless of that, we wanted to make sure that at the end of this, that curtain looks the way it needed to look.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just touch base on some really good news, regarding enrollment. It's not necessarily life changing, but it might it will slow things down for us related to enrollment. And so, a couple of years ago, they did change the way your base aid was figured, and it used to be prior year, preceding year, and then that was recently changed, and there was also a 3-year average rule in there. That went away for all caveats except one. And that caveat was you had to hit 3 criteria to be able to qualify for a 3-year average. It's my understanding you can count on less than one hand how many districts actually qualified. And so the criteria was you have to have declining enrollment. A lot of districts have that, but you have to have federal impact aid. And because of some of the federal property we own, that qualifies us for federal impact aid and a couple other things. And you have to have at least one active military dependent enrolled, and we have that. And so we qualified for the 3-year average. And so I tried to put a little chart in here to help kind of visualize what that means. Ultimately, at the end of 3 years, we're still gonna be with the same enrollment we're with, but it just slows the decline down. And so remember, we're always funded on, so this year we're funded on last year's September 20th number or the 3-year average if you get it. And so we did have 2 years, as you'll see in 22 and 23. We had the exact same FTE 2 years in a row, which is really an anomaly, but either way. So we were able to use both those 1284.5s plus last year's September 20th, that average to calculate this year. So our real decline was 62 students, but being able to use that 3-year average, it's actually 20.7 for this year. And so because we're always funded a year in the rear, we already know what we'll be funded on for next year. So we take this year, September 20th. It'll change by a few once KSE does their audit, but it's very close. And so we will be able to take this year's September 20th count, and then that 2022 1284.5 drops off. And then we use the 1284, the 1222, and the 1179. So we already know what will be funded on next year. So instead of a 43 decline, it will be 35. And then obviously we can't calculate the following year until we know next year, September 20th. So ultimately, we will still get to what our actual enrollment is, but it's just the pain isn't quite so fast. And so there's some good news with that is last year in our budget reductions, we did make reductions for the 62. And so we are kind of a year and a half or 2 years ahead. So that's good news. And in my mind is what that means is we can potentially wait to make further reductions until we know what next year's actual September 20th number is. We're still gonna probably we're gonna have to make adjustments along the way, but this just allows us more time to process and think about and have real data to use instead of estimated data. And so, again, it doesn't exempt us from our significant enrollment decline. I mean, we've lost 105 kids in the last 2 years. That will still hit us. It's just a matter of when it does hit us. Does that make sense? And so as long as our enrollment continues to decline, we'll still get federal impact aid. And as long as we have at least one military student enrolled, we should continue to be able to utilize the 3-year average.
So that's evaluated every year if we can use the 3-year average.
So, and then, so FTE and head count are a lot different. And a lot of people say, well, how can it be different by 20 or 25 kids? So there's a couple of things. We do have some part-time enrolled students. And then namely, it's mostly affected. The biggest difference between head count and FTE is for preschool. Because our preschool students are counted by 0.5 FTE. And so that's where the largest difference is in the head count. And like I said, KSD will ultimately audit these when they come. And so it's usually December. And so it'll be pretty close, give or take a couple of students, depending on what the audit finds. So, any questions on that?
We have a question on the construction tech ventilation. You got the gas motors underneath the building, underneath the classroom, or what ventilation are you talking?
So
Or the what?
I call them attic fans, not the right word, but you get the idea. And so I think they might have even found a solution on those, but basically it was getting those attic fans operating so that it's taking inside air out.
Feels? Anita?
The only thing I didn't put on there that just recently happened, I don't know if you heard it on the news, but the Office of Special Education Programs, so the federal special ed department, they laid off everyone except 2 people. So there are some things going around, some letters that you can write to your legislator to let them know, the impact that will trickle down eventually, to us. I don't know, how that will, but, I think dollar wise, maybe not, but maybe some oversight and making sure that, things happen that are supposed to happen might. I sent out letters this week, but if you're interested, I could definitely get you kind of that. They don't like to see chain letters, so they're all the same, but you can kind of tweak it to how that affects you, in your district, and I could send you that so that you could, kind of forward that on to them if you want to. They're glad to do that.
Has this shutdown, has it slowed down the reimbursement or anything up to this point?
No, not so far.
Any other questions for Anita? Thank you, Anita. We'll move on. Jacqueline?
I wanted to point out, the part on driver's ed, so I'd come and share with you, we have one, teacher who is certified that is willing to teach it. Her desire is to do a face-to-face class versus the online. It's been a long time since we've done that, but, that's where she's had her past success, and we're gonna give that a try. The main thing is that we let the parents know those dates, so the dates will be after school is out, and so, as well as the driving. And so that will go out in our letter in November to families, so they can plan ahead if that is something they wish to choose. It is not something we're required to offer, it's more of a service. It's a nice service, especially considering we aren't able to drive our kids locally. So we will have to set a limit because we only have the one instructor. We will bring kids school to school, so from Wakefield to Clay Center for that class period. And then, for the driving, we'll either host out of Wakefield or host out of Clay Center, depending on what times the kids sign up for, or the families sign up for. So hopefully we'll get that out very soon, so families can decide if it works for them or not, so.
But it's a second semester.
Yes, it'll be after the last day of school,
Okay.
so late May
Okay.
and June. And then the last page of my report, talks about the Patterson grant that we received. We are super excited, and the main goal of the grant is for more kids to leave with certifications and dual credit opportunities before they leave high school, or possibly that workforce connection already in place of something they desire. So we will get 100,000 in year one, 66,000 in year two, and 33,000 in year three. I took the original 5-year budget, found the percentages of where everything fell, and just applied it to the new number. And so you will be seeing in either November or December, you're gonna see an over $40,000 bill on the bill run. That is for ICEV. It's an online platform for our CTE teachers. I went up today and watched part of it, and an example is our business teacher can have access to modules for Microsoft Office Suite, Excel, Word, all the different business platforms. So it's a nice supplement for our teachers to give some opportunities and things to their kids. Even if we found today, if a kid is gonna go out and take a test for a certificate, they have practice modules that they can practice before they go out. So that'll be handy. But within this grant, besides the ICEV, there is a section for industry partners to bring in industry partners into our classrooms to help our students, as well as the equipment needed for whatever they're coming in for. And then the other portion is for scholarshiping for credential test or dual credit. So it's a huge opportunity for our community and for our kids. So, and the last thing I have, it's not in my report because it happened at 12:23 PM. Please forgive the paper. This is total draft of our 5-year technology plan. And so what I did was I circled and then I put a box around the other one. So, K-State's Rural School Development, they applied for a grant. And, we are eligible for a donation out of their grant. And what the grant was for, if you see the one I circled, the CAD labs, at which we were due to update this year. It should be providing us enough PCs that we can update those labs with the donation from K-State. And I think even have more, like right now, we have PCs in our construction lab at Wakefield and our architecture lab, but we have a need over in our construction and ag shops. And so those teachers have had to, use some of their funds to buy different PCs over the years, and some of them are getting outdated. I think we're gonna have enough to even give over into there. So I circled that 25,000 because if what we get works with our software, we shouldn't need that in that plan. And then up there in those boxes, not all of that will be wiped out, but some of that could be wiped out with this donation. So I should have the donation on either November or December's board meeting, depending on when those things get purchased through K-State, so.
And that's through the
Rural School Development Program, And
You have to
they're,
apply for that?
no, we don't, it's K-State who does it, we're just one of their partner schools, so we would then just accept it as a donation. They didn't do charging cards. So that would be our only expense. And there was.
But that ICEV, this is a 4-year subscription, is
Mhm,
that 40,000 for 4 years?
mhm. But just, we paid it, it'll be paid up front, but we won't have to touch it for 4 years, so. We'd written it for 5, but with the decrease, we just moved it and then. Yeah. So I think it's good news, the donation from K-State that's coming up. I think it'll help our tech plan. Again, I know Brett said we made changes budget wise, but it'll give us a little more autonomy and flexibility as we move forward. So. And this is just paper and drafts. So the tech report's not till January, but I just wanted you to see where that's gonna help.
I have a question on the third bullet point on the grant partner ed sheet. What does that cover? The supplies, equipment for the industry partners work?
So let's pretend we have a local company in town that does welding, that they're willing to come in and partner with the kids, but there's a certain type of weld that they want to show our kids or work with our kids, and we don't have the equipment. We can buy the equipment needed in order to help them demonstrate and work with our kids.
Does the school keep the equipment?
Yeah. And those industry partners are written, the grant was written for architecture and design and construction and think of our shop classes, to reach out and see who out in our community is willing to come in, and that is their trade. That's what they do day in, day out, come in and show our kids. I hope we develop partnerships of maybe someone that grabs that kid and says, hey, you could come work with me when you're done with high school, or I would even help support you in going to tech school and getting that certificate and coming back. So we're hoping to build those partnerships for our kids. The ICEV can be used in all of our CTE classes. The industry partners are primarily for construction, ag, and architecture.
And so punishment would allow us to actually pay them, right?
We would, we
So
can't
they
pay
will
salaries,
use
but we can pay them to
Like
come.
stipend to come in for a day, so they will look at it as they're not doing another job and losing out on revenues.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll be more willing to do that we can supplement them.
Yeah, excuse me, Jacqueline,
Yeah.
is there like a limited area operation that we can draw people to come in? for this type of program, or is, I mean, that's why I wonder, other businesses throughout our district or throughout the state of Kansas, or how does that,
I think we can go as far as we want.
okay?
It's will they come for, well, we did some kind of research around here, like what would it cost you to stop what you're doing for a day and come work with our kids instead? So we have a number. And so depending on the business and what they would need, it may or may not work for them. It's still a pretty I think it's a nice stipend to be right for contracted service, but no, it doesn't have to be low. I mean, we'd want to draw on our local people for sure. But if there's something specific and we need to reach out regionally to somebody, we definitely can.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And
And our-
what we did, we kind of went to several different trade areas that Jacqueline mentioned. And asked those folks, hey, what would your average billable hourly rate be if you were actually going out and providing that service? And so we kind of took an average in there of what their billable rate would be, so that if we invited them to come in, they could look at that and go, okay, well, if I have one of my industry experts come into the school for 7 hours on that, and I have the ability to be reimbursed that, the business wouldn't be losing out on that billable rate of their person or them being there and teaching their trade.
Anything else?
You want to do federal one?
Yeah.
Okay. So I updated our federal overview. And you'll see from last year to this year, our elementary total is just a smidge higher. As far as free and reduced percentage goes, our middle school is a little lower. High school is a smidge lower, but as a district, we went from 47% free reduced to 46.25. So we're fairly similar to what we were last year. Our Title I money down just a little bit. And remember, our federal funds are based off of census data, not our September 20th data. And so our Title I, like I said, was just a little bit lower. On the second page, I listed our Title IIA, Title IV, it's actually Title IVA and Title IVB. Those have asterisks by them because those were the three, I just wanted to point them out that those were the ones that were under federal review at one time. And so those amounts, ironically, our Title IIA went up a little bit, and so did our Title IV. We knew as long as they were gonna fund it, we were gonna get 70,000 for that after school grade. So those are the other three title funds there. Down below, I listed, put a picture of our logo here for our North Central Perkins Consortium. Again, that is us with Concordia. And our consortium got 25,666. We got to spend 40% of that already, and we've done that. We were supposed to be allowed the other 60% as of October 1, but they moved the federal funds, Perkins funds, from the Department of Ed to the Department of Labor. And so because of that, we have to wait till November to draw down the rest. And so we have filled 40% of the request. And we'll do the rest as soon as we can. And any questions?
Thank you, thank you. Okay, with that, we'll move on to business items. We'll get started with that.
Maria, you're welcome to come up and need a spot, or you're welcome to sit or stand, whatever. you
Come on
prefer.
over here.
Can I plug in there?
We had some
We're changing it up.
MacGyver some stuff today.
Matt was, with.
We are.
Jesus. Perfect.
All right, thanks for having me back tonight. My name is Maria with HTK. Noah was with me last time, but had another item he had to be at tonight. So I'm going to recap the last meeting that we had with the community, go through some components to setting up a bond, and then talk about the CM at-risk process. So just a kind of a schedule, looking at where we've been. We did quite a bit in September. We had that first community meeting at the end of September here tonight, and we're also developing a community survey that we're wanting to get feedback on. To go towards a bond election, potentially in March. And so working through this timeline is based off of that understanding of that's your purpose. So for that process, this is the recap of that first meeting that we had with the community. Talked about how this started with the BHS report that was done in 22 that collected a lot of the nuts and bolts and data and everything that you need for your school district and understanding what your needs are. We also shared high level finance information. School finance is difficult to come by and to understand fully, so we broke it very high level, but wanted to share some of that information like the mill levy and how that compares. This was interesting that some people saw this as a highlight and some people weren't as proud of where you're falling, which I thought was interesting, just different perspectives on this slide in particular. So again, just very high level, there's different buckets of money that you have for maintaining your district. This is set up by the state, the local option bond, the general fund, cap outlay. Those are all set established numbers that you work through with the state. Your only two other options for maintaining your district is the bond and interest fund and other, which would be grants and that sort of thing. So with capital outlay, it maxes you out at 8 mils. You can't pull more than that. Looks like you're pulling about 6, which gets you 1.5 million. This is not how capital outlay is figured, but it is what I found to be a useful tool for people to understand what capital outlay means. It's the purpose of it is to maintain your buildings, technology, your vehicles, and your site. And for the district, based off of square footage and the capital outlay funds that are being pulled, that's about $3.59 per square foot per year to maintain your buildings. And so if you trying to relate this to a person's home, if you had a 2,000 square foot house and you had $3.59 to maintain, that means you have less than $8,000 to pay all of your bills, maintain your yard, and operate your vehicle. And just to show that this is a very common problem, this is not due to a district's not maintaining or being responsible with their funds. It's the school formula set up to where you really don't have another option to maintain and continue operating, especially on those large ticket items without doing that bond and interest. So also shared a little bit about the operation cost and how that, if that's all coming out of your capital outlay fund, you have your general operation, you're pulling in 1.5 million, you have 700,000 going to maintaining and operating your building, then the remainder is what you have for doing improvements. So shared some of the highlights and the great things that you have been able to accomplish for improvements at each of the buildings, and wanted to be able to share with the community many of those things that you have been doing, like the roof improvements and the HVAC that are in really good shape because of being responsible with your capital outlay funds. We also talked about the focus areas, making sure that we're addressing safety and security, preserving facilities, making the long-term efficiency optimized for the district, and being community focused for sustainable planning. We addressed how education has changed and that you have to continue to be looking forward, and it's not just doing it the same way that you've always done it, but creating flexible learning environments, with having opportunities for project-based learning and all of this, that schools have changed and there's so much more program that happens and resource and intervention that districts need to do to continue to elevate their students. And it just doesn't fit in the same area. So even with declining enrollment, you could have a need for doing additions and changes to your buildings. So this diagram helps with that. Again, we want to make sure that whatever we're doing is tailored to specifically your community, and having everybody be involved with that and determining what is right for your district. We did talk about the demographics and how that has adjusted and changed, and how that is changed across different years. We talked about that previously in this meeting. Then we got more into specifics on the two different questions that you guys have developed and been working through. And we didn't want to confuse people by saying two questions if they start thinking that the bond is two questions and creating confusion. So we called them bond plan A and bond plan B, but it's the same thing as your question 1 and question 2 that you had. And how plan A, question 1, is focusing on maintaining what you have and doing those bigger ticket capital outlay items. And then plan option B had some more modifications to that and looked at doing some reconfiguration to reduce that square footage. And that would include a longer bond term as well as higher amount. And this was a diagram that I shared at the meeting to just try to help show that how that reconfiguration would change of a pre-K and district office building going together, a K through 5 at Lincoln, and then the rest of the building staying the same for that reconfiguration. I didn't include all the slides because this is more of a recap of that meeting, but we went then into specifics at each building on what the improvements would be at that building. This is something that in the next meeting, we would dive more into it and potentially some more cost information about each building as a whole, but wanted to be clear about what's included in plan A versus plan B. So those are all the things that we shared. And then we started asking some questions, and we had an open dialogue about some of the questions. And then we also gathered written feedback from people. So of the papers that we collected, the demographics are on the screen there of who we collected information from. That was a good mix of people and feedback. And then we shared these 5 questions and received, it was discussed at each table and then discussed as a group in a whole. So the first question, your favorite thing about the district, and a lot of the feedback was about the staff, the students, and the community. And I thought that was great. It really showed a lot of support for the community and for the district. It was very positive responses on that. The next question, what will the community see as the greatest need? And it was good to see that people were also understanding that this focus is about the students. And so that was important, that wanted to make sure the facilities were competitive, had safety and security. So the topics that were most common are shown in a bigger text. Just make sure that graphically it wasn't meant to be distracting to try to highlight where the comments overlapped. And maintaining facilities and making improvements on what you have. We asked everyone to rank the different components. So in option A and option B, there were several overlaps. And so we just took each of those items, grouped some of them together, came up with these 19 components that relate between those two, and then had them rank them in their order of preference, or what they saw as being the most important. So safety and security, almost all districts, I see that as the very highest need. Also the ADA improvements at the building and the playgrounds. And then it starts to get into some of that infrastructure, some of those things that desperately needed, but less attractive to see with the roofing HVAC. And so that's as a whole how it ranks. And then in terms of like if it was your number one or number two, this is similar information, but just ranked how many people had these items as the very top components. So our question number 3 that we had for discussion were, what are your thoughts for a K-5 facility? The feedback was there was lots of discussion about concern about the pre-K being on its own, and would like to have it together like a pre-K 5. And they asked about if this were the right way to do the configuration. This plan also had it broken at three sections instead of 4 sections per grade level. And so there were some concerns about that, and wanted to just kind of think through and mull over that on what would be best for that grade level configuration. There asked them about one question they still have. So these are things that I think we can answer these questions in the next community meeting. And if these are things that you would be interested in understanding more about as well, or people's thoughts about these would also be good questions that could be incorporated into the survey. If some of these are completely off the table, that we don't want to waste people's time on gathering information about them, but through a survey could be one way for asking these questions. We left it very open-ended, and so we do want to be realistic about what our next step is. We were really trying to gather input around those 2 questions and at the time, and so I don't want to take this in a different direction, but do want to address their questions so that they understand. It's the same thing whenever we do have the scope determined, people are going to ask questions and we're going to have to develop answers for them. So that is one side we can come back to if you have questions about that. What are the biggest challenges moving forward? This is another thing that is helpful. We're trying to gather lots of information so that we can best communicate to the district, whatever the scope of work ends up being. We want people to be educated on the process and what's included. So we want to understand the good things and the challenges. And so understanding that long-term vision, gaining support and communication is important with this. So for those that were at the meeting, is there anything I missed? Otherwise, I could go into just components of setting up a bond resolution.
Oh, excuse me, the only thing I can think of there on the PowerPoint was that, going back to the millage breakdown, that bonded interest at 17% state aid. Now, is that, or are you plugging in the current?
The buckets, yeah.
Okay, because I know after July 2022, my understanding list has changed within the last month, but there's they've done away with that.
Okay,
Yeah, in 2015, they did away with that, yeah.
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
okay. So for doing a bond, these are some of the keys that we see for success. that you want to start early and don't let a bond fall off. I think any person that you that has been through the bond process say that it's an uphill battle once you have a bond fall off. So you want to have a plan and be able to move forward. That bond falling off makes the next time you're doing the improvements, you're doing bond improvements because you have to maintain your buildings. And so it's just more difficult. So making sure that you have a good plan to not lose those mills is important. Another thing is the 7-0 vote. It is very difficult whenever you have a split vote for a bond. That creates that division that if a community is already questioning, if we have, it's not a plan that we've come together where we can at least say, maybe not agree with every component of it, but I agree to let the community have a vote in it. That allows for more potential for success moving forward. Engaging the community is important so that they understand that their voice is heard and that this isn't just people deciding this for them. They have an opportunity to have given feedback. And then another thing is term length. I think we spend a lot of time talking about term length. It is, I don't have the number on it, but most bonds are refinanced over time. It changes because of interest rate, whether that makes sense, but most people refinance, especially with longer term bonds, and that your interest rate doesn't vary very much between your term lengths. And so that's something that Piper Sandler would be good to have a conversation with them about this, but they set them up very conservatively. And so that allows you more flexibility. They don't want you to be in a position to where you're not able to make your bond interest payment. And so those are set up very conservatively that also give you that flexibility of doing a refinance or turning that into another bond in the future. With informing the community, it's one of those things you can talk about it and talk about it and talk about it, but people don't know that it's happening until it's happening or right after it happens. That getting that word out and communicating, you can't over communicate whenever you're trying to explain what is included in the bond. And that can be through information from the district. But we want everyone to be informed so that they can make that decision for themselves and make it educatedly and not just based off of hearsay or things that are going on. And then also whenever, even with determining that term length, is to continue to look at your capital outlay and the planning of that, because it is a long-term plan and that it's the bond and the things that you're doing right now, but it opens up capital outlay to pay for some of those other things so that it's just continual long-term planning. So this is a slide from Piper Sandler, and this is the state requirements on the components that you need for setting up a bond. So the scope amount, the scope of the project, the bond amount, the date of the election, the type, whether general, special, the financing plan that gets into the term length, and then the construction delivery method. The first 4 questions are what go into the bond language, and the 5th question is, or the 5th piece of this is what goes to the State Board of Education for their review of what you're planning to include in the bond. So this is, we took another school bond question and adjusted or generalized just a few of the pieces, because I think it's helpful to understand whenever you're doing the bond resolution, this is the things in red are the pieces that you fill in. The rest of this is pretty common state language that's written, and Piper Sandler helps with putting this question together. But you have the bond amount, and then in terms of the scope of the work, it's not saying like bond floor and bleachers, or it addresses additions, and if you're doing any additions, or it's saying improvements and renovations, and then listing each of the buildings. So having that bigger vision and having the plan of each of the items that you want to include, that goes to the state for determining that you have a realistic bond amount, but you don't have to put in the question every single one of those. Things are gonna happen and they're gonna change, and you may have $100,000 planned to be spent on one item, but something else will happen and that item will cost less than that and another item will cost more than that. So having the general scope of what you plan for that is important, but there's flexibility within that. So trying to think about this timeline and what you have determined, this is really the language that goes into putting that bond question together. Put this in here just for reference on what the funding options we were looking at. They also asked about like a shorter term link, so that's something was just some of the questions from people at the community meeting. So any questions about the bond? Otherwise, we'll talk about the construction delivery methods. So there are several different delivery methods that you can do, but for the state of Kansas, their state statutes outline two that are the methods that you can do. So private sector and other states for schools can do different things, like design build might be one that you've heard. But for Kansas, it's design bid build and construction manager. These are set up pretty similarly. The difference is on the responsibilities for the general contractor. And this is about the contractual relationship between the owner, the design team, which would be the architect and engineer, and then the contractor. So traditionally, projects have been design bid build, where the architect works with the owner to develop the scope of work. We put that project out for bid, and then the general contractor is awarded the project if they are the lowest bidder. They collect all the bids from the subcontractors, and then they present one number to the school, and the school has to take the lowest qualified bidder. And that's for any project over the 20,000. For construction manager, this is a state outlined process that you are allowed to hire your contractor based off of qualifications and not just on the lowest bid. So the construction manager will still put all of the work out for bid and collect those bids from their subcontractors. So the work is still competitively bid. It's the managing of that project that is the piece that happens where you can choose that managing to be selected based off of qualifications and not just lowest bid. The state process does include a component of it where you get their fee, so you are able to see that, but you're to select them based off of the qualifications. Here are a few pros and cons and just lists about those two pieces specifically. In the last, I think, 10 years, it has changed a lot in terms of what these two processes look like. The state has refined the construction manager at risk process, and most schools that I'm working with now are going that way because of making this process easier for the district and for the board. Whenever you're doing the design bid build, you work with the lowest contractor and lowest bid contractor, and that can create some challenges where they might have missed something in their bid, and that's why they were the lowest bid. The construction manager at risk process includes some more allowances that help cover that they wouldn't necessarily have in the lowest bid application. Construction managers at risks are also, because they're hired based off of their qualifications, they also are thinking about that next job, and they don't want to make you unhappy about anything. And so the level of service that you get out of a construction manager, it creates a different dynamic, and they want to make sure that you get what you need and you're happy with the work that you're getting so that they can get the next job. So school community, is pretty small. And they know everybody, talks with everyone else. And so they really, the reputation, I think, is the biggest piece that good construction managers understand, and that's why they continue to try to over deliver in their services.
What are the costs?
And that's something that it
That's
depends, but
behind
you know, if you got a headache or pain, what does that cost you? Like, there's, some of those benefits are hard to measure. And I think the other thing is, you know, in the percent of the projects, so much more of it is going to the subs and not the person managing it, so. We can do it either way. This is where I see most school districts going. So for the state
As a
CM,
part of the interview process, they have to submit their fees to the state. Correct?
Correct.
Will you kind of explain that?
yes, yeah. So this is the state process. There's 3 phases. The first phase is qualifications. The second phase is the fee piece that goes to the state. And then the third is interview. So I put some preliminary timelines out there on what this could look like. You have to have a discussion like this, and then you put the state statute into the newspaper. It has to be posted for 15 days. That says that you're intending to receive qualifications. It doesn't mean that you're hiring anyone. It's just that you're starting this process. After the 15 days of it being in the paper, then you can release the RFQ, the request for qualifications. Will help with putting that all together. That would go out to the contractors, and then we would have their qualifications due 2 to 4 weeks after that. So we would collect that as physical copies or digital copies and then review that. I've seen that being reviewed by either a board, like before a board meeting, or by a committee. That's something that we would need to determine how you would prefer to do that. But the state also outlines if you have so many contractors, then you have to, you can't have more than 5, and you have to have between the 3 and the 5 contractors. So depending on how many you get, you have to go through that process to shortlist the 3 to 5 firms. The next step, once they've been shortlisted to that, is we'll do a facility tour and go around and talk about the scope that's planned at each of those buildings. After they've seen that, then we have them submit their fees, and that is what goes to the state. The state looks at that, evaluates and scores their fees, and gives you a matrix. You can see what that is. Phase 3 is the interview, and that again could be done by that same committee, different committee, or the board, and interview those shortlisted, and would score them at each of these different phases, and then would make that recommendation for the board. So you're not hiring them or anything until that you've been through each of those phases. And about the soonest you could do that would be in January. With timeline on that. So moving forward with that process, that next step would be the notice in the paper, and then to also work through what makes sense for a committee as a board or selected. Questions about the CM process?
So the next thing we would have to do is just the notice in the paper on 10/20.
As soon as is, yeah. Okay. So for next steps, what I'm tracking here is the second meeting with the community group. We have that scheduled for November 3rd at Garfield. I will take a deeper dive into the details and the pricing and answer some of their questions, talk through that timeline with them and help guide them to where they can get some more information. And then as well, that would be the CM process to determine if you want to continue with that, and then the community survey.
And Maria, I've gotten some informal feedback, so you guys need to share your feelings about wanting to host more of a public come and go town hall type meeting. So anybody who may not have participated in the other process has the opportunity to listen and provide feedback. And so I don't know if that's opinion of the full board or where we are on that, but I just wanted to make sure that I did bring that up, that I have received some feedback from some individuals that shared they might like to see that kind of format. So I don't know how the group feels, but that would need, I think we would need to determine if or what the third looks like. Does it involve more of a town hall? Can we do two in the same evening? I don't know. I've had a lot of thoughts about it, but I wanted to open that up to the board and see what you guys thought.
Do you normally have the same group of people that come for all the meetings, or how do you guys want to do it?
Yeah, usually we have a couple meetings with the same group of people so that we can go through it, educate on some of the pieces and then get their feedback, answer their questions, and then come back and be able to go into more detail with them. And so it's a
What's
lot.
what's the deadline of actually saying what we want on the bond?
December 8th,
December 8th.
yeah. And that would be the amount, the term length, and then
How about what we're actually gonna do?
and what you're gonna actually do.
Cause I'm not set on what either one of them yet. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I would right now, you wouldn't have a 7-0 vote the way we are right now.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm kind of wondering, huh?
I guess the timeline I was kind of thinking, if we do this second meeting,
Okay,
I think that second meeting should involve more of the community. That was kind of thinking, get as much community input as possible. We've already got the input from this group. I'd like to have other people have a chance to express their input at a meeting. So more like an open forum, town hall type of thing to give people. So I just want, so nobody can say they didn't have a chance to come and speak. Rather than just say, well, this little group is the one that gave all the information. So that's where I lead on the November 3rd, is to do that. And then get that information back to us to the board meeting, and then have a special meeting after a regular board meeting, and make the final, off of that input is put together the final, what we want to do, so we're ready for the December board meeting. That's how I see the timeline between now and the 1st of December.
Do we have that, bond information on the district website?
Yes, the Maria, the HDK's original presentation, all that data is on the website.
I tried going to it just as errors, but I could just.
I got it. I'll show you one back up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked on mine.
And Matt added forces you to close the orange and blue box.
And then we would go ahead and publish that on October 20th, so we can move forward on that schedule. Put that in the paper.
you know, and off of this first meeting, I mean, I could almost say that the public doesn't want to do number 2.
Right, I mean, it's 35 people.
Well, I understand that, but you know, the feedback was pretty evident that, you know, secured entries, secured infrastructure, ADA building improvements, ADA playgrounds.
I think we have 7,000 people plus in the county.
I don't
It's
know,
only
6%.
What are you doing?
Well,
So
then
I would
you
like to
don't,
give them
you don't
one
have to, you
opportunity.
don't want to meet with the same group then, but that's not her process. You know, her process is meet with the same group so they can talk about the previous meeting.
Right, so that's what we talk about is, do we set aside a time where it starts in an hour and they get to share that and do what she wants, and after that, or prior to, it's open to everybody to come and from 6 to 7, and that starts at 7 with the other group. But, we talked, I would like to open up so everybody in the community has an opportunity.
That's
to
fine.
reach
I
to
mean, I just,
whatever, however we can work that in to fit into yours, and we have that information before the next board meeting.
So why couldn't we just give all that information to anyone that came?
Right, you
And the
could,
people that were there at the previous meeting
you could,
can come back and just do it all at one time.
I'm fine with that too, as long as people, anybody can show up who wants to show up and if they want to express their opinions, they can.
As long as you don't spend the whole time answering questions that we've already answered.
Right.
So that you can get at least that core group to dig deeper. You know, they've gotten this much information and it's a lot of information. So we've given them this base and now we're gonna give them this next level, which is open to anybody. But that way we have at least that core group that really can answer questions in the community and go out to their groups and talk about what they've done.
But
Anybody's welcome to it.
anybody's welcome to it and they can share it, but anytime we spend a bunch of time on building a brand new K-5 is a waste of time. That is not gonna happen.
Yeah, and I think that that's what's hard with pulling in anyone and everyone, you know, we had that conversation, we talked about that, what does that look like? We need $25 million to do that, so,
Right.
we don't want to.
Right.
I'm trying to help
Well, I'm
give
trying to
you
get
feedback.
feedback on the two
Yeah.
plans that we put together, get
Yeah.
the feedback on those two. Hey, respect your ideas, thank you, but this is the two plans that are in consideration.
Yeah.
So,
Well, at the same time, we have to operate in good faith with our community. And that means it's not this community only, it means our entire district. And so that allows that we're gonna have it obviously at Garfield. And so this allows not just people that are local here to
Right.
attend, but also
yeah, we can do it
in far
everywhere.
reaches of our district,
Mhm.
quite a few miles away, to be able to come and address, be able to listen and address any of their concerns too. Currently right now, I think the only concern I have right now is some of the questions from the first process was presented. And one of them, especially here on the PowerPoint, I noticed was a K-5 in Clay Center. I believe that we need to be more direct and specific. Okay, at K-5 and Clay Center at Lincoln School. You know, with these right here would address any other type of questions that come up, because that was a question that was presented to me. And I said, no, it's not a brand new one. This is one of the options. And another thing too was the maintaining all the buildings. Maintaining all the buildings as possible. Well, what are we talking about? All the district buildings, maintain the district buildings. I mean, just leave it simple. Just leave it you know, we don't have to get into where people have to do guesswork or anything like that, thinking that, okay, what we're looking at here. And just, to me, we can really simplify this. You know, some of the question errors that's presented.
Yeah, I would love feedback on that, so thank you. I think that'll be good for the survey as well, to have those worded correctly to get you the information you want. This process is not exactly how we always do it. We do adjust the process to what you have. A lot of times the district doesn't have their scope fully determined between a plan A and a plan B. And so there is some more discovery that happens through this. And so that's where I'm wanting to make sure that my process doesn't create more problems for you, and that it is specifically what you need to help you with the questions that you're determining. So like the other questions that they had, like that one, I don't want to go down that road if that's not where you guys are going at all. And so I want to make sure that I understand that I'm doing what you need to give you your feedback and not just working my own process over here. It's with the intention of trying to give you feedback.
I know you don't have dollar amounts, but the difference between A and B, there's gonna be a lot more taken out. Other than just roofing and the district and parking lot, like. Be quite a bit of A would not be done. But the numbers we've given.
How do we give our suggestions for the questions that are asked on the survey or the
Mhm.
changes that need to be made?
Yeah, I think if you email those to Brett and you can share them with me.
And I think if you have any strong opinions, now would be the
Yes.
time just to kind of make sure you all are on the same page.
Yes.
Cause I don't have a strong opinion.
Yeah,
Well, I would also would comment on what Dave said. There is a priority 1 through 13 here, maintain as many buildings as possible. I think that needs to say maintain existing buildings. That comment or question
Mhm.
seems misleading to me, but that's just my opinion.
Question are you talking about?
Well, it's on
was-
survey example number 3. There's listing, rank the following list of improvements
Oh, okay.
anticipated. Sorry, I have this other flip paper here that I was looking at.
I was looking at question 5, where it says now maintaining all of their buildings in Clay Center and Wakefield. That wording's okay for you?
The one she's talking about is on page 22, I believe.
Page 59, I think it is. Number 3.
Yeah, it's our-
Yeah, yep, and so the number 5 is on page 60, so that's.
Change that wording to existing district buildings.
What does exist?
Yeah, it says existing. Building.
Okay.
Question number 5, also, the sentence that says this option allows the district to reduce square footage to maintain. Is that necessary in a survey?
No.
did you take that line out?
That would be my suggestion, but I'm only one person.
I would think, like you say, to probably go back and simplify the priority list,
Mhm.
rank the following needs, highest priority to lowest,
Mhm.
then, move district office in pre-K to Garfield School Building on the priority list. And this way you have everything that we discussed previously on our intended goal
Mhm.
going into the bond listed right there on the priority list. But, and I don't feel like with all the, I call it propaganda, but with all the propaganda that's been sent out and to let the public know, which is great, that's what we're supposed to do. That's our obligation. Then we don't really need to get into a whole bunch of details.
Mhm.
Saying, well, if we do this and change the closet here, then we're gonna move it over here. You
Yeah.
see what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, people are voting on a specific
Mhm.
bond, and that's what's gonna, whatever's in the language, bond language. Then we have an obligation to the public, hey, this is what's here.
Yeah.
We're not sitting there smoking mirrors. We're not gonna sit here and play the David Copperfield scenario on you. From the start to finish, this is the way it is. And everything's up and up.
When will this survey go out?
So, we were looking at doing it this week, if you're good with these questions, if we need to modify them. I think that there are a few of them that would probably wanna,
I don't really like 9 or 10 because we haven't talked about raising taxes.
you don't like them, so.
Yeah, we never.
Yeah.
As a board, we haven't talked about raising taxes.
We haven't, but there sure was a lot of people disgruntled that were
Yeah.
came from the bottom in the middle.
Yeah, we always.
Is that because they don't understand the levy or is that because they don't?
Tax neutral.
I don't know, it should be a.
Why are we so low?
Yeah.
That was a good thing.
I think that rank the need in order of importance first is the most important. That should be a survey question. Those items on that that have already been presented.
It is,
It is a survey,
Yeah,
question,
it's-
and all those items are on there?
yeah, it's number
Okay.
3.
Okay.
I just don't think that the question would, what would be a tolerable amount for monthly increase of your taxes? I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's, I changed the color, I didn't.
Oh, that's okay, that's okay.
Call your attention
What is
to
a
it.
tolerable amount?
Yeah,
Yeah. 0.
There you go. Survey question number 1 was answered.
Back to the question number 3.
Mhm.
On the right-hand side, we have remove mobile units. I know they're still there, but we've discussed numerous times that we wanted to remove them. Has that changed or?
Depends on which plan we go with.
Mhm.
We can't remove them right now without doing any changes.
Right.
Because we're still using them. So in order to remove them, we
Right.
might have to do some
Okay,
reconfiguration.
I just want to make
So,
sure that I was.
That is still a
understanding.
possibility, yes.
Okay,
But should that be a question
Yeah,
for the community?
yeah, how important is it to them?
Is that, you want more level than? the
Well, I think that
ranking?
all falls into the
That's more like a
reconciliation,
consolidation.
because of the consolidation thing rather than answer
You're asking two
specifically.
questions, like they're,
Yeah.
we're thinking we don't need them,
Mhm.
but then they don't realize they're saying they need to consolidate by answering yes. to that
That's all
question.
part of the
Yes.
pre-K thing going to Lincoln and K-5, that's all part of it.
I think it needs to be included because, yeah, safety and security is one thing, moving mobile units is another. Do you feel your kids are safe if they're in the mobile units? Like, how much does it matter to the parents? It doesn't hurt anything to ask, and if it's not important to them, it's about.
I'm Why don't you give us until, Wednesday?
Okay.
To submit anything
I think that's
else
great.
to Brett, and then that would allow you by the end of the week to put it out?
Yeah.
Okay.
And how are you putting that out?
Menti is a software program that we use a lot of times, for gathering feedback, so it creates it into like a QR code or a link that could be shared so that anyone with that access could go and.
So what if you don't have that access?
Um,
And you're
so
a taxpayer?
if you,
Well, something we've done at enrollment is people can stop by here and we set up devices and allow them to use.
Yeah, and I think we should have paper copies here at the
Yeah,
office for
it's fine.
anybody.
Yeah.
And we can,
And I think we should take some paper
So,
copies.
so if I
down
don't
to
have
Wakefield.
access to their deal, it forces me to have to drive up here and get a paper
No,
copy.
no, we
No,
can
we
take
can do
paper
it at the
copies to
buildings, too.
Wakefield. Yeah,
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, you understand, I'm getting at this.
Yeah, we would leave paper copies in Wakefield at the school.
And there's no way we can send it out to all of our parents through our,
Yes, so
They
anybody.
will
has
through
a
the
link.
email.
well, yeah, but if they don't have the link or they don't have access to that.
No, it's a
Oh.
website, so we send it out on the email, and as long as they have that email, which all the parents can have, it can go on our website.
social media.
Anybody can go
all the
off the
district
Facebook.
Parents, all the district
It's
staff.
not they don't have to own the software or the app. So
right, yeah.
But I'm still saying there's probably a lot of people that pay taxes that don't have that access.
So to the QR code. So can the survey be a part of the email
Yes.
without having to go to the QR code? And
I
they
think you have
can,
to click on the link to be able to fill it out. Otherwise, it would just be responding back in an email.
So Jeff, do you have some suggestions on reaching those people?
I have no idea. It's not my, I mean, we hired that gal to do it, so.
But we're gonna have to
You know.
help them connect to
Well, I
our.
understand. So how do we connect to our people, Brett? I
I
mean, how do we connect to them? I mean, how do you send stuff out to everybody in the whole county that can have access to that?
We do
Because that's
like-
who we're trying to catch.
Social media, newspaper, radio, and print.
Okay,
So there you go.
so either they don't, so say I don't get the newspaper and I don't have social media. So are you gonna put paper copies at the post office, at the bank? Or are you gonna
They
put it?
just said paper copies
Here
at
at the
the
high
school in Wakefield.
Okay, so the 85-year-old man that lives at the south part of the county's gotta come to the school to get a paper copy is what you're telling me.
You're more than welcome to deliver it to me.
Okay, that's what I'm asking, because it's not only gonna be there, it's gonna be in Green, it's gonna be in Morganville, it's gonna be in Longford,
Yes.
so.
And I think is what I'm saying is I'm very to find in all those different ways. If you have ideas, like, I think we can deploy resources to help HTK make sure that everyone gets copies of those. And I think all of those are good ideas and, you know, if we hit all the.
You know, the new newspaper brags about how many households they hit, why don't we put a paper copy in the next, a picture of it or whatever? I mean, they talk about how many, it goes to 4,500 households, well,
That's a good idea.
I mean,
you can check into that.
Yeah.
I have one more question on a survey or comment on a survey question. Number 11 on the last page, page 61. Would you be interested in participating in an information committee once the bond scope has been determined? Can you explain to me why we would have another committee? After we've decided what we want to do, why we'd have another committee come in? I'm not following that.
I
Well,
thought it-
afterwards, we gotta have a committee to help promote it. I think that's what that's talking about. I don't think it'll be the same. The person that I nominated for this was all for them to give their opinion what it was. They weren't interested in doing all the promotional stuff later. So that is kind of what that is, Shane, after.
So once we've decided what bond, what goes on it, there's a separate committee that goes out and
Yeah, the
promotes the
work with
bond.
HCK, this committee, and then a campaign basically is what it is.
Yeah.
And that committee will be a part of helping out with the campaign. And that's where a lot more details, everything, this is exactly what we're doing, is those people on that campaign.
So I don't think,
And we'll have a contractor on board by that time, and which is always helpful to answer questions.
yeah, I think that it's getting to everyone. It's hard to get this information to people. People will say like, I didn't know anything about it. It is difficult to get the information. We're all information overload. And so the more people we can engage to help with spreading the word and getting that information out, the better off that you'll be with engaging more people. So,
And when we put on Facebook, part of the thing could be, if we could put a thing on there, if you need a paper copy,
call this number.
email us or call this number and we'll do our best and we'll get it there.
Most of the time, those people wouldn't have Facebook anymore.
Right. But there's some people that have Facebook and all that, but they don't want to get on a computer and do it. They want to do it on paper,
Yeah,
so.
no, that's a good idea. Just bringing it in the paper.
And I think that answers that question, to
Yeah.
people to do that for after.
Yeah, I mean, there are services that do mailings, so, I mean, you could mail it to people. You can pay for that.
I don't know what it would cost, but you can pay for a hard mailer.
Yeah.
That would hit every address in the whole county.
Uh-huh.
The hospital does it regularly, so they
Right.
have
Yeah.
that number for you.
And that would ensure that it went to I don't know how you get it
We
more widespread than
Then we
that.
need to do that.
It's just the timing, guys.
Yeah,
Right, sure.
To have your results back by your November 10th meeting. So,
Is that something the board would like me to look into?
Yes. Our biggest thing is the October. thing of getting that thing out so we can continue to progress.
Mhm. Yeah. And then, this CM process, starting that.
Yep.
That's good. To put that in the paper.
Yep.
Okay.
You want a formal vote on that?
You,
Paper thing is,
Yeah.
isn't it? The publication in the paper. I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
I've seen it both ways. I mean, you're not hiring, you're not starting that, you're,
No, I think the word even last one says we may discuss it at the next. What do you think? Please send me the wording of whatever it is.
yes, yeah.
Anything else? You're good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for coming tonight. Keep us informed. We'll
Yeah.
see you again soon.
Thank you.
On the next meeting, thank you, at guess we'll hear from Craig. And Jason, that's Jason.
Yeah.
And Grant. Isn't it?
Not there. What's it all?
Ground band.
Oh, Grant. And I like that you put that in the report, right there in the presentation. That goes good. All right.
Is there anything you guys would like to hear from either of those two groups specifically? I know sometimes they're love them to death, but their strength isn't always presenting in front of a group. But if there were certain things that you would like them to cover, I can just let me know and I'll make sure that I support them in making sure they get that info to you next month. And that goes for food service and IT the next 2 months too, if there's specific questions. Cover those things.
With that, we're gonna take a short break. And then we will resume here in 5 minutes.
That's not gonna have a plant in Manhattan, and I got rained out. I'll just sit back out. 600.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've never met him.
But, yeah, we never.
Yeah, everybody thinks the point
It's here. Not noticed. Here.
Well, at least you.
I did realize it was quite clear.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be learning.
Yeah, yeah.
I think Andrea can help us out with that one.
I agree. Yes, I've already
We need an
asked her
answer.
lots of questions.
Yeah.
First year, that's whole life.
Yeah. Had since an eighth grader, he's gonna go to work.
Always good to try something.
But it's very first season and we're gonna be gone, we're taking a honeymoon a year later. So we're gonna be gone for 2 duels and a tournament. And there's only 6 total events. So we're gonna miss half of the season.
Not after RVPs and they're so high. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you want to say something? Send me an email.
Speaking of emails, I'm pretty sure you have the wrong one for me
You think?
on the website.
Hopefully this
Well,
one's a big.
I've had a new one for about 4 years now.
I know I have the new one. You're getting my emails, aren't you?
I get some, I don't.
You're just telling me you don't read them, okay? I'm
I
gonna send,
just read them when I'm looking for something in my trash. I go, oh, I should read it.
I'll send your correct email to somebody who can change it on the website.
Pretty sure. it's-
Yeah, really good goodies.
But I might buy some.
Use JCM company at Gmail, right? That's what I've got. I'll make sure that.
It rained just enough to knock the dust out of the air. That was about it. The spider webs on my front yard are still there, so. I don't know.
Asprey Thistle this afternoon, got it in before the rain. Being new and not having the details, I had to call my brother. I'm afraid he's gonna get a bunch of rain. Gonna kill a bunch of their hands.
It's a good year for us to not have crops.
7:41, so it's been about 5 minutes.
I hadn't just got word to you, right? Okay, go ahead and resume the regular meeting. Next item is the executive session, so I move we go into executive session to discuss personnel pursuant to the non-elected personnel exemption under KOMA, and the open meeting shall resume at 8:15 PM. The executive session shall be the board, superintendent, council, and the need of break.
Second.
Second, all those in favor? Motion carries 7-0.
Yeah. We did get out of the service small matter. Another one is furnace. Oh, jeez. In 30 minutes.
8:15.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Eat a brownie. I ate a brownie. That's probably my third or fourth one. Oh, you ate brownies. Good. I don't want to take them back home. They're really good. I'll just eat them. Well, over the whole course of the day, not just at the, I needed it. Not just the night. Secret recipe.
Okay, we'll resume the regular meeting, and I make a motion to extend the current executive session until 8:35. Second, all those in favor? Motion carries 7-0.
Make a brownie on your way.
Yeah, okay.
What's in it?
Just brownie mix, but I put.
That's not gonna cut it, Denver.
Arrow syrup, that's my secret recipe. One little squirt for every box of brownie mix. Are you going? No, okay, I'm just gonna, look at this in my room. Oh. Here, let's look at the calendar. What is it tomorrow? Hmm? You see he's gone now? Can I move it to 8:30? No question. I think you're looking at the wrong day.
No.
Tomorrow, we got post board meeting. That's it.
I know, can I move it to 8:30?
Sure.
We had a good time. Yeah. Really good time. Yeah.
One minute.
Jason, was that any of the cities that were like that?
Bristol.
Wichita.
I don't do this. No, I do.
Okay. Ready? Yeah. Okay, we'll resume regular meeting. Next up is, personnel. So I move to approve the personnel report as presented. That does not include the supplemental. The second. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Then I move we approve the supplemental personnel updates minus the girls' head basketball coach and assistant basketball coaches at Wakefield High School. And a second, all those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. So with that, I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
The second, all those in favor?